Ever wondered about living in a country that's half empty? Imagine waking up only to roam around in nature as people are nowhere to be found. Although the world population is hitting 8 billion in 2024, still certain countries in the world have habitats but are still empty. Most of you might have fantasized about living with your friends alone or enjoying the most of yourselves. If yes, then buckle up, as we are going to explore some of the empty countries on the coast of the world. Let's dive deep. At first, we have Kazakhstan with approximately 2.7 million square kilometers, making it larger than most of the Western countries. But despite that contradiction, this country has nearly 19.94 million residents. This country's population density is low, but why? You might think everyone wants to enjoy lush green landscapes and other wonders of nature, which are clearly available in Kazakhstan. But the only problem is that this terrain receives less than 200 millimeters of rain annually, leading to dry areas profoundly impacting agriculture. On top of that, the temperature, which rises to extremes, both extremely hot in summers and bitterly cold in winters, makes this country sparsely populated. Historically, people led a nomadic life with minimal settlement, but the Soviet era, marked by tragedies like Kazakh famine and relocation, has left harsh traces on its population. Many people want to live in Kazakhstan, but these conditions make it hard for people to survive, making it sparsely populated. But if you think the journey to explore empty countries of the world ended, think again, as what we are going to explore next will blow your mind. Up next is Mauritania, geographically 1.03 million square kilometers, surpassing Germany in terms of its size. But here's the kicker. Despite being 3 times larger than Germany, it still has only 5 million inhabitants. Suspicious, right? But the reason behind it is quite obvious. Water. Mauritania is the 7th driest country of the world due to being 90% covered by the Sahara Desert. Desert, and you guessed it right, less or no water. The extreme drought situation is rapidly converting the inhabited areas into deserts, leaving this land sparsely populated, or you might say, inhabited. The population living there relies on the Senegal River as their only source of water. Nobody knows what the future holds for this country in terms of their needs, but what we do know is that we have just explored another empty country on the coast of the world. Next up at number 10, we have Botswana, a country with only 2.7 million population. Most of this country is covered with deserts and national parks. You might be imagining the reason for this emptiness in a vast country. The low population density is mainly due to the influence of AIDS and a staggering death rate in history. In the 2000s, 40% of its population contracted AIDS, leading to an epidemic affecting millions of people. The population saw a rapid decline due to the death toll in response to the epidemic. The nation came together to fight as a community, but the epidemic has left a daunting impact on their population. The inhabitants of this country are still struggling to combat the population decline, making it one of the empty countries in the world. Have you ever wondered what it's like to live in a country that faced such a severe epidemic that left numerous strides in the population? Scary, right? But stick to your seat, as the next country is going to be more exciting than you have imagined. Libya, one of the driest countries in the world, receives only 56 millimeters of annual rainfall. Having around 7.25 million population and a vast 1.76 million square kilometers of land, Libya's majority population lives around the Mediterranean coastline. Rivers are of utmost significance for a country, but rivers in Libya? Nowhere to be found. This makes agriculture and settlements nearly impossible. Only through innovative projects like the Great Man-Made River, which transports water from deep underground, has Libya been able to sustain its coastal cities. This makes Libya one of the empty countries of the world where no one wants to live. Canada. Yes, it's also one of the empty countries of the world. Some of you might think that this can't be true, as we see thousands of people roaming around in Canada. But the fact is, despite being the 2nd largest country in the world, its population density is one of the lowest globally. Surprised? Let me tell you why. The harsh climate and the land covered with Canadian shield make its terrain unsuitable for agriculture. With half of the population living near the U.S. border and half covering the north where the population drops even further just because of frozen tundras and widespread forest. You might be surprised, but these harsh climates have significantly affected Canada, making it one of the empty countries of the world. Next up is Suriname. Suriname, the smallest country in South America, is almost entirely dominated by the Amazon rainforest, making only 37% of its land habitable. The warm and wet climate combined with floods does not make it an easy place to build infrastructure. It is home to about 600,000 people, and most Surinamese people live along the coast, making the jungle mostly unexplored and inaccessible. All of these contribute to this country being sparsely populated and one of the empty countries among others. Tired? Grab a cup of tea and stick to your seat as the content ahead will give you a strong dopamine hit. Iceland? Strange, right? Iceland might not be the first name that comes to mind when considering this list, but with only 3.82 people per square kilometer, it is very sparsely populated because of its volcanic terrain. The country is constantly reshaped by volcanic activity, and large swaths of it are uninhabitable. While the milder coastal areas are home to 95% of the population, the threat of eruptions and harsh conditions in the interior keep Iceland's population from growing much larger. With these harsh conditions, this country is one of the empty countries of the world. Guyana, an English-speaking country of South America, is unique. How? Almost 80% of it is covered by the Amazon rainforest. Lack of infrastructure, dense forests, and lack of connectivity make it one of the isolated regions of the world. Only 3.79 million people live in Guyana, mostly along the coast, making this beautiful country one of the least densely populated in South America. But wait, more surprises are on the way. Stick around as the last country that we are talking about will excite you the most. Australia is a vast landmass with only 3.48 people per square kilometer. The continent provides a very high quality of life, but large parts of the outback, which constitutes 70% of the country, are uninhabitable. High temperatures, scarce rivers, and poor soil with low nutrient content make large-scale settlement difficult. Therefore, most of Australia's population is found in a few cities along the coast, leaving much of the interior sparsely populated. Russia is the world's largest country at 17.1 million square kilometers and is largely underpopulated in many of its vast regions. In fact, though it is a large country, its population is only 146 million, and most of its territory is too cold or too remote for large populations. Most Russians live in European Russia, where the climate is milder. Siberia's frozen wilderness has been left largely untouched by human settlement. This remoteness limits population growth even in the Russian Far East. Greenland, an icy land technically owned by Denmark with lots of natural resources under the ice, is one of the largest yet sparsely populated islands. The ice sheet covers most of the island, making most of it uninhabitable. Its size is more than 2.1 million square kilometers, but due to its harsh Arctic climate, lack of arable land, and isolation, most people live along the coast. Despite speculations of it being sold to highly influential people, which reflects its importance, yet the truth of the day is that this island is still empty and sparsely populated. Last but not least, and the most exciting, the Vatican City, the smallest in terms of landmass, and has a population of just 800 people. Have you ever seen a country with such a small population? If not, Vatican City is a real example. The land is owned and controlled by the Roman Catholic Church. Although small in size, it is the headquarters of the Catholic Church and the residence of the Pope. The Vatican's low population is primarily because it is a religious center, with most of its residents being clergy, including the Pope himself. There we are with 12 empty countries of the world, from the arid deserts of Mauritania to the frozen expanse of Siberia. These countries remind us that not all land is meant to be inhabited. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more fascinating insights.